friends, and welcome to the CUInsight Network. I'm Robbie Young, the Vice President of Strategic Growth at CUInsight, and it's my job on this show to have conversations with thought leaders who support the credit union community. We'll identify issues affecting credit unions and have a discussion on best practices and hopefully gain a few nuggets we can learn from to improve our credit unions. My guest on today's show is James Karanasios, National Account Manager for Credit Unions of TriAD CTV. James, thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Robbie.
So most of us didn't grow up thinking we would get to work with credit unions. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I feel like I have an answer that's so many of us had. I wanted to be a rock star. No, I wanted to be involved in some way in music. I wanted to play music for a living. And if I'm being honest, I still haven't given up that dream. But I think I started playing the violin in third grade. Sixth grade, I started playing upright bass at the request of my music teacher. Started learning how to play guitar and all these things. And eventually I was like, you know what? This is for me. This is something that I could do for a long time or for the rest of my life. So the dream isn't dead. How I support that dream is kind of what leads me to where I am now.
I like it. And don't let that dream die. We'll be ready when you become a rock star.
That's right. That's right.
So what was the journey like to your current role as National Account Manager with credit unions at TriAD CTV?
Yeah. So I met our Chief Strategy Officer, Alex, at a previous company. I had been a BDR manager for quite some time. I had been in business development for a long time across just a number of different industries, most of it geared toward data, identity resolution, how we best use data, how we execute, things like that. So I met Alex through an opportunity where he had come in, done some consulting work, and from there we just built a great relationship. And once the national account manager position came available to TriAD, we connected and that we thought there was a great fit. And so we work with a lot of different industries, right? TriAD is, I think there's 11 or 12, maybe more branded, specific industries that we work with. But I personally work specifically with credit unions across the country, some other financial institutions as well, but primarily credit unions from East Coast to West Coast, in the South, all across the country, supporting them, helping them find ways to build out connected TV programs, streaming TV advertising programs that are going to be effective specifically for the credit unions that they're representing in the communities that they're in.
So could you tell me a little bit more about TriAD CTV and where and how they add value to credit unions?
Yeah. So like I said, we work with a number of different industries, but really the main goal with TriAD CTV is to be completely audience first, right? Audience is king. The way that data has developed over the years, our chief product officer was the director of a credit union or director of marketing at a credit union for quite some time. Over the last 10 to 15 years, they've kind of worked their way through data, targeting. And then recently, when 2020 hit and that TV consumption completely changed, all going towards streaming, right? That was an area where, as a company, we decided and said, you know what, this is a great place for us to be in. And one of the great places to start would be credit unions, because we have a great understanding of how credit unions operate, how they envision themselves within the community, what they're doing and promoting as credit unions and supporting those communities. And then being able to help understand what those barriers are as well. So adding value for credit unions, the way that I would look at it is, we're allowing credit unions to now compete in a space that maybe wasn't accessible before, where, as a credit union, you can compete on an incredibly, if not the most influential video medium that's out there in television, but do so in your community and be strategic against those other financial institutions that we know have huge budgets, right? We know Chase and Capital One, and we see all of these groups. We see them all the time. They're far-reaching across the country and obviously, internationally as well. But what we're able to do is say, you as a credit union, we can help you do that. We can help you deliver on that. You can compete against those groups, but then you also have the strategic advantage of being in your community and knowing the ins and outs and being able to say, okay, great. Yes, I'm on television. Yes, I'm competing with, these big financial institutions in this market, but now I'm doing it in a way that's strategic because I know exactly who my community is and the ways that I should be supporting them.
So I want to pull on that thread just a little bit more. Many credit unions, like you mentioned, understand the value of TV advertising, but historically it's expensive and hard to target. How does TriAD CTV change that picture for credit unions of all sizes?
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, it's audience is king, right? Targeting has come to a place where that's what you have to do in order to be successful and be effective. So a couple things, right? One, we know with credit unions, they have thinner marketing teams. They typically have smaller budgets. So validating that spend to internal stakeholders, to executive teams, board members, things like that is really important. So there's a couple things that we've done. So first of all, on the targeting end, right? We work with over 300 plus third-party data providers. And what we're able to do is say, okay, regardless of what the household is watching, right? It could be on Hulu, it could be ESPN, they could be watching YouTube TV, they could be watching Tubi, right? As long as they're connected to the internet and they're watching television, we're going to have access to those households. So utilizing those third-party data providers, what we can then do is say, okay, great, let's only target the households that you as a credit union want to be in front of, whether that's community-based and you have specific focuses, lending products, checking products, saving products, things like that, or if you're seg-based as well. And of course, there's those same things, right? Lending, seg-based, checking, seg-based, whatever the case may be. But let's only target those households that you want to be in front of, qualify for your credit union, and then only serve those ads to those households in the areas and communities that you serve. So now it's saying, okay, great. I don't have to worry about what they're watching. All I have to worry about as a credit union is who's watching, qualify them, and then only serve to those households when they're watching, so that when I am spending my ad dollars, I'm only spending those ad dollars to those households and not wasting it on anything else, right? It used to kind of be, hey, let's be on the 6 o'clock news because that's when everyone's watching, but we don't really know the types of households they're watching. We don't know if this is something that they're looking for. Are they in market for an auto loan? Are they in market for a checking account? Whatever the case may be, we don't know that. Well, now we do. So let's only spend money on those households. Let's make your budget as impactful and cost effective as possible. And then the second thing would be the minimums, right? It used to be really expensive, right? That was just the way it was. I work with credit unions who are doing $750,000 a month. I work with credit unions who are larger. They span multiple regions, multiple states, and maybe they're doing $5,000 to $10,000 a month, right? Regardless, we don't have any minimums on those kinds of things. So now as a credit union with a smaller budget, maybe only serving a couple of counties, you can look at it and say, well, I have a program and I have a way to access this and be very effective with my budget to make sure that when I do take this back to my executive team, to my board members, it's validating that not only is this an incredibly influential medium for us to use, a great tactic for us to use, but we're doing it in a way that's being cost effective and mindful of the fact that our budgets are thin, so we have to be scrappy with it.
So you mentioned education being a big part of what you do. Helping credit unions really understanding that streaming TV and what's possible. Can you share how you approach that and maybe an example of when things really clicked for a credit union partner?
Yeah. So I would say that the education piece, a lot of it comes down to kind of helping, and it's not just credit unions, it's a lot of marketers, right? But helping kind of bring it back to basics with streaming television. And we know that there's new ways to buy it, right? There's new ways to buy TV advertising. There's new ways that people are now accessing it. We know that consumption habits have also changed, right? We have people who are watching non-skippable television, full episode players on the way to work on their laptops or on their iPhones and things like that. So there's those big changes. But at the end of the day, the experience is still the same. So what we want to do is, we want to educate on, right, it's very simple. You're on television. You are on what is the ultimate, brand awareness medium, brand building medium. So let's not overthink what television is and the impact that it has, right? Let's now be more strategic with how we buy it and let's educate on that. And so I think the click moment for most comes in when they recognize or even ask the question and then recognize after. So you can target X, Y, and Z. And we say yes. And they go, I get it. I understand. I didn't think that was possible. Things like that. That process, I think, typically happens. We have a really cool way of kind of visualizing that through a forecast. So what we do with all of our credit unions is at the onset of a campaign or of your planning session, we say, hey, you tell us exactly the types of households that you want to focus on throughout the year, the next quarter, whatever the case may be. For some, it may be lending products. For other, hey, we want to grow assets. We need checking, savings, certificates of deposit. Others, it's we just want to grow membership. And one of those really great ways is through auto loans, right? It's just an easy ticket for us to be able to get new members through the door and then hopefully kind of get them to take a look at other things that the credit union can do for them. So we take any of those target audiences that they're looking to focus on. Then they also give us the specific geos that they want to serve. That could be, it could be the entire US, which is usually not most or any, but there's a few that can do that. And I think everyone knows their big names, but that region that they want to target down even to the zip code level, where we could put a radius around a branch and say, hey, anyone living within 10 miles of your branch who's in market for an auto loan, those are the only households we're going to target. So when we do that, there's two things to that forecast. So one's the audience page. We validate how we pulled that information, right? So we'll have our third-party data providers listed. We'll have the description of that information so you can see. And again, it's just about being transparent and helping understand this is why this is high fidelity. This is why we say audience first CTV, audience first streaming TV, to help validate and be able to put together those audiences. And then the really cool thing is being able to even forecast an estimate of the number of households that they could potentially reach who are in that target audience and are in that geo and are actively watching television. So now as a credit union, you can say, okay, I'm serving 2 counties and I'm looking for only individuals and households that are in market for an auto loan. And it's a snapshot, right? It's an estimate, but it gives you a universe and an understanding of, okay, so this is actually what's available to me of people who are in market for an auto loan right now that my credit union could be in front of on television, having that consistency, that visibility and availability. So it's kind of a combination of those two things. And I know I kind of went on for a rant there, but it's that piece of just kind of breaking down the basics of why television is effective in the first place, because it's still television at the end of the day. It's just being bought differently. And then through that buying process, what's the strategy that makes it very, efficient and effective for credit unions to be able to utilize and do it, without a lot of obstacles in the way. There's a number of programs and things that we're also putting together more and more, a lot of times to help smaller credit unions get over that hump with, hey, we don't really have creative. There's other things that, we're facing, our budgets are kind of smaller, right? We've built out those programs and solutions to say, no, even you as a smaller credit union, there's ways to access this and be able to utilize television, even with the smaller communities that you might be serving.
That's amazing. I remember talking to your team early on, and even I was so impressed. I mean, even me outside of a credit union specifically, I was amazed. I think everyone thinks of TV in the same way, and that seems really big. Yeah. And that's reserved for people that want to have a big advertisement on a very, very big market. So it was very interesting for me to hear those things too.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's just, there's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of different things that the streaming TV industry it grew really fast. It changes really fast. There's new things out there. One of the things I try to do as best I can on a month-to-month basis is all the credit unions that I've had a conversation with, there's a monthly nurture update. We're working with you guys, right, to help put out information about the industry specific to credit unions, just to kind of help understand and realize, okay, here's how all this is working. Here's how this is developing. But like I said, kind of bring it back to basics, because at the end of the day, it is television. And while there may be a lot of different ways to track it, and there's a lot of performance metrics and things that all come in, I still look at it the same way. And I say this to most credit unions, if not all, that it's, again, it's the ultimate brand builder, and it's the visibility, the availability, and the consistency on the most influential medium that we have that you're able to tap into. So let's utilize that, but let's be strategic about how we do it.
Well, credit unions love their acronyms too, so maybe that's why this is the perfect marriage of
that's right.
things to put together. So, from your perspective, what's the biggest misconception credit unions have about connected TV advertising, and what's the reality?
I think it's kind of on the creative side, which is, in order to participate or in order to be effective or be taken seriously, I need to have an ad, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, that is super polished. It's incredibly well produced. It's like everything that we've seen from all those big name advertising players across any industry, when you think about it, that have had these ads rolling for years, right? And the reality is it comes down, I think, to two things. One, it's personal over polish. And within that, it's making sure that your content aligns with your context, right? If you're going after a younger audience, maybe fresh out of college, they have their first new job, or they're just younger in general, they're in market for an auto loan, and they are in fact focused on local and community and things like that. Those are things that they care about. If your message, if your content aligns with that contextual situation, that contextually, it's going to be effective. You're going to have a lot of success. And you don't need to do that through an ad, like I said, that has all this live production and this flash in this show, right? It's personal over polish. It might just be some motion graphics and some voiceover, right? In that 15 to 30-second ad. But if you're speaking directly to that audience and you're really aligning that content with the context, you're going to be effective. And that I've all the time, we talk about, man, I don't know. I mean, if I put an ad out there, I don't want to seem like I'm just a little credit union. It's like, no. You're building credibility because your ad is speaking directly to an audience that is going to want to hear from you. I got lucky. When I was a millennial, and my dad was a branch manager of a credit union growing up in New Hampshire. So I kind of was familiar with what credit unions do and how they operate and why they're important. A lot of millennials and Gen Zs, they're still coming around to it and trying to figure that out. But they're savvy, right? They understand what's an ad. They understand when people are trying to, well, we have this great point of view, this very personal, organic looking type of video, right? At the end of the day, we all grew up with video, so we can understand it. It really just comes down to connecting those two things and saying, listen, it's a personal message to a group that's looking for something that they need, and we're going to be able to provide that to them in understanding whatever the scenario that they're in, whether it's their age, financial situation, life events, all those different kinds of things that happen to us, on a daily, weekly, yearly basis.
So on a more personal note, as a rock star, how does that creative side you have influence and inspire the work you're doing with credit unions through TriAD CTV?
It gave me a lot of empathy because having to learn and understanding what goes into advertising and promoting, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of stakeholders, right? My band are my stakeholders. When I talk to them, we're making decisions together, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate what the best route, the best options are. I think at the end of the day, what it's helped me to do is to better understand what the problems that kind of just come in general with advertising and marketing, right? Big or small. And then being proactive about ways that we can help credit unions even before that, right? We're a platform that helps on targeting and execution of streaming TV advertising to households that you want to be in front of. But what are ways as a company that we can, even before that, provide things ahead of time or solutions ahead of time that are going to help credit unions? Even just, hey, let's help figure out strategies that helps credit unions to bring this internally to their team so that when they're explaining it to their team and they're walking through it, right, they're not trying to figure out, hey, what is the value? How do I present this? Let's, as a team, help credit union marketers to do that, right? Because we know credit union marketers want to be successful. They want to be innovative, but there's still that order of operations that they have to go through. And so what are ways that we can support those marketers utilizing some of the frustrations that we've had to go through, or even just on my end, is I do the marketing for our band. I, reach out for shows. I do the promotion for shows, all those kinds of things. It's a lot of work. And so if you have someone there to kind of who recognizes that and thinks about that beforehand, I would love to have that on the music side. That's for sure.
So as you look into the future, what is TriAD CTV's focus on the road ahead?
Yeah, I think what we want to do is, it's a piggyback off of what I think I just mentioned, which is I think we want to help credit unions to continue to have a roadmap for bringing in a CTV program, to their specific credit union. And then on top of that, I would also, would love to see more and more credit unions be involved in the CTV space, sharing best practices, things that they've done. And obviously we want to be a big factor in that. So we want to help tell those stories, share what others are doing. I mean, regardless of whether or not someone is continuing to do a CTV program, or they're taking a break, or they're going to spend more budget on it because they've seen a lot of success with it, we're trying to use all of those conversations, all of the conferences and everything that we go to to best understand what are the things that we can do as a platform and as a credit union focused group to help support that. And so, this year we took a really, really big leap into making sure that we're doing as many conferences as possible. I think we're doing about 10 to 12 total this year. It's going to be the same thing next year. We want to be visible. We want to be present. And the focus for the road ahead, again, is just to continue to educate. We know that the CTV industry, the streaming TV industry, is going to continue to change. So how can we adapt to those changes? And then how can we apply that to our credit unions to make them successful? Because there's a lot that are coming on. There's a lot that are recognizing the value and understanding why streaming TV is such an important factor for them. So let's continue to build off of that.
So not too busy at all.
No, not at all. I do get a lot of travel in, right? The good news is I get to see a lot of things, so I can't complain too much. Some areas of the country are a little bit more interesting than others, but that's okay. I'm glad that it's something that keeps me active. And working from home, it's nice to be able to hop on a plane every once in a while, even though I have to fly through Logan Airport through Boston, which is not the most fun experience, but it does get you out of the house, and it's a lot of fun to interact with people and meet them. And you end up making good relationships and kind of business friendships as well, where it's more than just business talk, which I really do appreciate and enjoy.
For sure. So to wrap up the show, I'd like to have some fun with some rapid fire questions to let our listeners really get to know you better. The questions are rapid, but your answers certainly don't have to be. Do you think you're ready?
Let's do it.
So who is someone in your life that's a great leader, and what makes them great?
I'm going to give the nod to my older brother, Brendan. So he kind of, I'm one of 4 brothers. So he paved the way in a lot of different ways and did so in kind of a calm manner, had a lot of resolve, but help led the way. And then anytime he figured something out in life that would be extremely helpful, he always shared that wisdom and that knowledge. And he's been a great husband, a great dad to both of my nieces. So I think definitely a great leader throughout our life as brothers.
I love that. And shout out to big brothers.
That's right.
So if you're going to splurge on something and want to treat yourself a little, what's one thing that you might invest in a bit?
So the answer to this is I already have invested a lot, much to the annoyance of my better half. But I love music. I love guitars. I love guitar pedals, recording equipment. I've to the point where we have recorded demo tracks in the basement of my house, not really actually blowing out the windows, but blowing the roof off the top of the place. But if I'm going to splurge on something, it's going to be something musical, and most likely it's either going to be a guitar or a guitar pedal, just because I'm a nut about it. Right now, I think I'm up to 6 or 7 guitars, and that'll probably grow.
That is amazing. There's some industry people that I think you would be interested in getting to know that have some interesting guitar collections as well.
That's right. My Sweetwater rep and I have a very close relationship.
So if you are traveling for work, what city are you most excited to visit, whether it's for a client visit or a conference?
It's a tough one. So one of the things that I like to do is anytime we go to a different place, like Austin, when we were there for the marketing, PR, and development, I just walked the city, and that was just really, really cool. Just to see a place. San Diego was another spot that I had never been, and I had checked out the USS Midway out there. So it's tough to pick one. I think the way let's go future state. What I would love to happen is some type of international conference that brings me to Rome, and the reason for that is I want to go to Umbria. So that I could eat the food, maybe gain 10 to 15 pounds, touring across that region. I recently was watching, I think it's Searching Italy with Stanley Tucci. He just goes across all of Italy, trying out all the food. And so I was like, that's something that I want to do. So I'll parlay that into a hope for the future that we get an international conference that we get to head to, and it brings me to Rome and the great cuisine that comes with it.
All right, World Credit Union Conference. If you're listening, that's right. We have a decision made for you. So take that one off the table. What's a book that you think everyone should read?
Interestingly enough, I'm not a big reader. I read up on news and articles and things like that. And the things that I read, I think most.
We could switch this for you. We could say what's one album that you think everybody should listen to?
Ooh, that's an even tougher question. Well, I can do both. So with the books, I'll read like physics books, just like, because I just think it's fascinating.
I'm going to let you talk to my husband. This is the same snooze fest that I get involved.
That's right. Like there's a Harvard professor, or maybe it's MIT. I can't remember. I think it might be MIT, but Walter Lewin, right? He's like kind of world-renowned physicist, and he has a book out that I've read. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm like looking at it. It's in my bookshelf right now. I would say the most recent book that I read, and it's because I just never read it in middle school or elementary school, anything like that, was To Kill a Mockingbird. Fantastic book. It was captivating. I just think it was a fantastic read. On the album side, I would lean towards any Led Zeppelin album. I think Physical Graffiti is absolutely fantastic. I have a small album collection, nothing crazy. I have Synchronicity by The Police. I had Quadrophenia by The Who. Honestly, like anything that was like mid-70s rock just going crazy and evolving, I would say go for it. But I'm going to land on the safe bet. Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin 2, any of those, you're just not going to go wrong. They're they're the gods of rock. So
it's amazing. What has been your best hack for creating balance, or whatever you see as balance? This has been a hot take kind of question, between your work life and your life.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I literally heard something the other day that talked about how life speeds up. When you're younger, life is much slower because everything's novel. There's all these new experiences. So you just but once you get older, you're not experiencing as many new things. So it can kind of just go by really fast. So I kind of set this goal for myself, and let's see if I stick to it. But I would say for a work-life balance, I would love to do a better job of going and finding novel experiences, maybe just to slow things down a little bit. And, you can kind of reflect on that and say, wow, this is fantastic. So one of the things that we've done in the past is we started to travel more, go to Europe. A couple of years ago, I was in Germany, went to Oktoberfest. I was in the Czech Republic, Amsterdam. And when I think back of that trip, it was 13 days, but it felt like a month just because everything was so new and so interesting. So I think a great life balance has a lot to do with finding novel experiences so that, you're able to slow things down a little bit but not get bogged down with the day-to-day work life that can zoom by pretty quickly. Like, we're already in August. I swear I was just on a plane going to San Diego in January. And it's like, no, here we are. It's August 26th. We're getting ready for fall. I'm getting my lawn all prepped so that I can overseed it and things like that. I mean, it happens quickly. So that would be my suggested life hack for balancing or integrating work and life as best you can.
I like it. So we'll be sure to link to everything we talked about today in the show notes. My last question for you is, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners or asks?
Yeah. So I talked a lot about this too with our chief strategy officer and with credit unions at conferences and things like that. I would love to see more credit unions take an active approach with whatever advertising medium that they're doing to educate millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha that's coming on why credit unions matter. We know that credit unions need to get younger, and there's ways to do it. There's very effective ways to do it. We have all this targeting. There's a lot of different mediums you can use, and CTV is one of those. But having a full toolkit of advertising and marketing strategies is great. But I would love to see that. I would love to see more advertising or more, just more information around talking to Gen Z and others who are community focused, right? I think there was an e-marketer, and this is something that we actually posted, I think, in one of our articles with you guys, with Credit Union Insights, was about how, Gen Z, it's like 52% of Gen Z picks their financial institution based on who they know and trust. And they're not going in and saying, who has the best HELOC rate? Who has the best interest rate? They might be doing some of that, but they're more or less just going with who they know. And so as credit unions and as champions of credit unions, I would love to see more of that, where you have credit unions actively going after those groups and saying, your membership with us funds your neighbor's next auto loan or funds your neighbor's, next HELOC or a home equity loan or whatever the case may be, to help them understand that it's member based, right? Everyone's part of the credit union. You own a part of it. You're involved. You're contributing to your community's success when you're with a credit union. And I think a lot of people still don't know that yet. And that's a really, really key thing that we should be reminding people of. Because, right, you can have multiple financial institutions. It's great. But, let's remember why credit unions matter in the first place. And let's not be afraid of that message, because it's moving back in that direction where people are saying, yes, we know that Gen Z and millennials, we love instant access. We love ease of use. I think mobile banking and all those things are becoming a commodity, and most have it, including credit unions. So let's turn our attention back to making sure that people truly understand why credit unions truly are a foundational piece of a community, and do that through our advertising, through our marketing, through whatever means that we have.
And it sounds like TV and streaming is the best rooftop to kind of shout that from.
I would say so myself. Absolutely. If you're basically putting a billboard in the homes of all those households that you want to be in front of in the first place. So think of it that way. If you're trying to convince a team member or someone in your credit union why CTV makes sense or why streaming TV would make sense for you guys.
I love that. Thank you again so much, James, for being on the show. Stay well, and thanks to all of our listeners today for tuning in to the CUInsight Network. We'll be back again next time.